Hey everyone, this is FaZe and welcome to my channel. Now, if you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, then you probably know how big of a fan I am of the iPad. And I use the M4 iPad Pro as my main computer, and I also use the iPad mini as a great content consumption device and for light note-taking. And it's so great to see the iPad become more and more powerful over the years. You know, iPad OS has come a long way, right? It still has its limitations, but it has come a long way and it's getting new features every single year. And the iPad form factor overall has improved quite a bit over the past few years as well. And now there are reports coming out of a all-new foldable iPad that is currently in the works by Apple. And this is music to my ears. I'm super excited to see how they can improve the form factor of the iPad and take it next level. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over this report from 9to5Mac and we can go over it together. So the headline here is that Apple reportedly is releasing a foldable iPad in 2028. Gosh, that's quite a few years away. And it's potentially running macOS apps. Okay, that's pretty exciting because I think that's something that we've always wanted, right? We wanted more, not just pro apps, but actual desktop class applications coming to the iPad. So the fact that it might run macOS apps is pretty cool. So let's read this. According to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, Apple is aiming to release its first foldable in 2028, and Gurman is describing it as something akin to a giant iPad that unfolds into the size of two iPad Pros side by side. Is it a 13-inch iPad Pro or an 11-inch iPad Pro? But I'm pretty sure it's two 11-inch iPad Pro screen sizes side by side because two 13-inch screens would be overkill. Rumors about an Apple foldable have been off and on for years, but according to Bloomberg, Apple is finally zoning in on one product, and that'll release in a few years. That's really good to know because I actually did a video earlier this year about a foldable iPad because there were so many rumors and speculations about it. So I kind of gave my thoughts on it. And then I just never heard anything else about a foldable iPad. In fact, I started hearing more and more about a foldable iPhone. And to be honest, I'm excited for a foldable iPhone, but not as much as a foldable iPad. The report also states that Apple wants to avoid creases on its device, and that's been a large focus during development. The crease is nearly invisible currently, but Apple has yet to eliminate it entirely. Now, this is very, very interesting because if you've used a foldable Google device or a Samsung Fold or any of their flip devices, you will notice that, yeah, they fold and they flip and all that stuff, but there is a noticeable crease, especially depending on the angle that the light is hitting on the device. And, Apple is such a perfectionist that they don't want this because clearly they could have come out with a foldable device, much earlier, but they don't want that crease. And that's something that I've been hearing about for quite a few years now, that Apple just wants that crease gone. And the crease on these foldable devices that I've seen, not only is it visible, but if you run your hand over it, you can actually feel that crease as well. So it doesn't look that great and also doesn't feel good because you don't want to feel something like that on such a premium device, right? So clearly Apple is trying to eliminate it, but it's good to hear that the crease is nearly invisible. All right, so when unfolded, this display will apparently be around 20 inches or so. Gurman describes it as a single uninterrupted piece of glass. It's also described as a higher end device. 20 inches, just to give you some perspective, the iMac is 24 inches. So this is ginormous. And there has never been a MacBook even that has come close to 20 inches. So this is right in between like an iMac display and the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I am loving what I'm hearing. It's one of those devices where it's going to be like a book, right? So it's going to be very portable and hopefully thin and light. And when you want to use it as a desktop-like experience, you will get that. So I'm really, really excited for this. So 20-inch device, I'm all in for it. And of course, it's going to be a high-end device. I mean, this is an all-new technology that Apple is working with, a foldable device for the first time. It's going to have a big price tag. Apple appears to be focusing its foldable strategy on creating much larger screens that fit in your backpack rather than offering a suboptimal tablet experience for your pocket. So when you look at companies like Google and Motorola and Samsung, they're all about giving you a smartphone that can unfold into a tablet, right? So that's kind of what they're trying to go for. And Apple's strategy is completely different. They're trying to give you a tablet experience, right, that can fold into something much larger. Now, is it just going to be a larger iPad OS experience when you unfold it? Or is it going to be like an iPad Mac hybrid? We don't necessarily know right now. Maybe it's a mixture of both. We don't know. But clearly, Apple has a plan. They have a strategy, and there's a reason why they're going for an iPad that folds into a much larger display. When addressing the operating system, Gurman suggests that the product will likely run a version of iPadOS. However, there is one interesting detail here. I don't believe it will be a true iPad Mac hybrid, but the device will have elements of both. By the time 2028 rolls around, iPadOS should be advanced enough to run macOS apps. Now, that is something that we need to consider. A lot of people are like, well, iPadOS sucks and it has so many limitations. By the time this device comes out, it's going to be 2028. iPadOS is going to be on an all different level. And the experience that we're facing with iPadOS right now is going to be very different in 2028. And like Mark Gurman is saying, iPadOS should be advanced enough to run macOS apps. Now, if you look at Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro that were launched on the iPad Pro this year, it's good to see that some of those applications are finally making its way to the iPad, but by 2028, we might get actual desktop class style applications for iPadOS. And if that's what's going to happen, then I think a device like this will make a lot of sense. But I feel like by 2028, we're going to see a killer device. We're going to see iPadOS go next level. I don't think it's going to run macOS, but that doesn't mean it may not run macOS apps, because right now, iPad apps can run on macOS, but macOS apps cannot run on iPadOS. So even though the Mac hasn't turned into an iPad, just like that, I don't think the iPad will turn into a Mac. But I do think macOS apps will run on the iPad, and I think that alone will be a killer feature. Now, it's unclear whether or not this is just speculation from Gurman, but the possibility of running Mac apps on this foldable iPad and potentially other iPads as well is quite exciting. So this report is really interesting, and I feel like we're only going to learn more details about it as we get closer. Right now, it's far too early to really know what Apple is planning with this foldable iPad. Clearly, Apple is working on foldable iPhones as well. There are reports coming out that are saying that it might be 2026 when we might see a foldable iPhone. But I do feel like I am more excited for a foldable iPad because, like I said, this is my productivity tool. This is my content creation device. And to see it become more powerful and much different in its user experience, that gets me excited more than anything else. But at the end of the day, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about a foldable iPad? Do you think it's just going to be a fad, or Apple's really onto something? Whatever your thoughts are, whatever your questions are, leave them down in the comment section below. And for all things Apple and iPad and productivity, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.